Greetings, Dr. Joseph Martin. Feather of Truth, Heart of Truth. Afterlife Preparation. That's our topic for today. Now, I want to say that I want to give a bigger background that this is a spiritual science that I'm hopefully comprehensively garnering and gathering together. I've spent my whole life academically and in psychic research and so on, intuitive research, in the Akashic Records to pull all this together. So while I will be focusing on the focus of the heart as the place of truth, that component of human nature is the heart, I want to give a little bit of a background first. Now, first to say that the human being is actually a tripartite being in different natures. It's sort of, in a way, competing natures, if you like. Now, we understand that this comes into the beginning when human beings, that is our ancestors, the ancient ones, as we would call them, came to the earth, and this would be billions of years ago, not millions of years ago, as our present-day archaeologists and anthropologists would have it. And as you know, I am an anthropologist. Now, we know that there's a spiritual component, which we could call our etheric part. There's a mental component, our causal part. And there's definitely a human emotional, heartfelt part. That's the part that makes us most human. And then, of course, the animal instinctual body, which creates some challenges for a lot of people. Now, the feather of truth, the heart of truth, obviously some of you will recognize, is a reference to ancient Egypt, mostly the middle and the late kingdoms of ancient Egypt. I have been doing research in this life as somewhat of an Egyptologist. It was always my goal as a young person to be an Egyptologist. So I'm just giving you a summary here of some of the aspects of this. And I know most of you are interested in the afterlife, so I'm going to draw some historical, cross-cultural, anthropological comparisons with other notions of the afterlife as well. Well, let's just start with that. Now, the afterlife for the ancient Egyptians was called the Field of Reeds, or the Ani, if you like. And it is the afterlife where people go when their physical body passes on, and then they move forward into the afterlife. Now remember that the organs of the human body were taken out of the Egyptian body when they were mummified, but the heart was left inside because the ancient Egyptians believed that they would actually resurrect the physical body if the heart was of a true character. In the First Nations way, we call the afterlife the Blue Road of Spirit. In Buddhism, we call it Nirvana. In Hinduism, we have many terms for it, but it is the great source, if you like. I'm trying to use English terms here. In Catholic and Protestant Christian terms, of course, and in other terms of modern-day religions, Western religions mostly, or Middle Eastern religions, it's heaven, if you like. And you know that in my experience, I live in two worlds. I came in consciously. I've had many near-death experiences. They're all written about in my Living in Two Worlds book, which is my autobiography I published just over a year ago, subtitled A Life of Love, in which I describe what it's like to be in both worlds, the afterworld, if you like, the afterlife, and this present physical world at the same time. There are lots of books out there about people who've had near-death experiences and so on, and they tell you about their journeys. Some of them went up to the barrier where they were not able to go beyond into the light and had to come back. There are many examples of that in the bookshelves in the world. And some went farther into the light, as I did in my 2 heart operations, and came back from the light and crossed the frequency fences and came back to the physical third dimension in this same physical body. So this is a very important topic. But I'd like to prepare you for your afterlife. That's when this physical overcoat body is ready to leave, and hopefully that'll be a very long time from now, and you'll stay very, very healthy, and that's my wish and goal and inspiration for you. And as for myself as well, a long, long life I wish for you all. However, all of us will go into the afterlife, and I'd like to inspire and prepare you for this. Now, the main thing is that the tripartite body, which you will find in much more recent kind of ancient memory, because as I mentioned, when we came into the physical billions of years ago, and this is over 2.5 billions of years here on the earth, we have many memories of how this works. And I have other YouTubes on Polaria, Lemuria, Atlantis, and post-Atlantis. We're in the 5th post-Atlantean phase at this time. However, you can find this kind of information about the 3 parts of the body, the mind, the heart, and the physical body, in Gurdjieff, Uspensky, Theosophy, Alice Bailey, and most importantly, I would suggest Anthroposophical Teachings in Medicine through Dr. Rudolf Steiner, the founder of the Waldorf Schools in Biodynamic Gardening and Homeopathic Medicines. And we have it in the First Nations traditions of the world, so this is cross-cultural cosmology and mythology. Now, why focus on the heart? You just watched my previous video. It was an encouragement and actual experiential to find the home in your heart and be at home wherever your heart is and purify your heart as well. That's what we're talking about here. The feather of truth. What is this? Well, when someone passed over early on in the early and middle kingdoms of ancient Egypt, Anubis, the dog-headed god, was the one who helped the soul. And now we're going to talk about the Ba soul. The mind was the Ka soul, the heart is the Ba soul, and the Ankh is the etheric spirit. So you'll see references to the Ka, Ba, Ankh in Kabbalah, which is the Jewish mystical tradition. And of course, many Jewish Kabbalists will want to look back earlier to Egypt, Atlantis, and Lemuria to find the origins of the great Jewish mystical traditions. Just a little aside there. Now, with the Ba soul, that is the emotions and the heart, that's the part at the moment of death and subsequently for a series of stages that only take minutes to occur right at the moment where the Ba soul leaves the physical body and the physical body dies. The Ba soul is taken to, in the early kingdom, through Anubis, who would be the one to take the heart to the place where there's a golden weighing scale. Some of you may have seen representations of this in ancient Egyptian art, and it's in a lot of the museums of the world. And there Anubis, and later Osiris, who took over from Anubis, and later Hermanus as well, but mostly we'll stick with Osiris here. Osiris was the god of immortality and also the god of the dead. He was the one to help resurrect the soul and bring them to truth. Now, once the soul was placed against a white feather on one side of the scale and the heart placed on the other side, the goddess Ma'at, who is the great goddess of truth, justice, honesty, loyalty, cosmic laws of righteousness, and all things good and true, she is also not just a goddess, she's a principle. So she represents at the same time the objective principles of truth, righteousness, justice, and law, cosmic law, of goodness. We have the white feather on one side of the scale, and the Ba soul, or the heart, is placed on the other side. One of two things will happen. If the soul is heavier than the one white feather, then the demon goddess Amenti, or her other name is Ammit, who is part lion, part crocodile, and part hippo, or sometimes rhinoceros in the images. She will devour the soul because the soul is evil or greedy or selfish and does not live by the principles of truth, which the heart was originally created by the Creator to be a heart of goodness, but because humans have free choice, many people at this time in the Kali Yuga, in the dark ages of our humanity over the last 5,000 years, and we're still in it, aren't we, with all the wars on the planet and the selfishness, many people, maybe at death, unless they change and become a righteous person, may find that against the white feather of truth and purity, their soul may be eaten by Amenti, if you like. We have the Catholic purgatory and hell as well, and there's other kinds of notions in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition as well of these kinds of other astral planes, and other Buddhist and Hindu traditions as well all have this in it, and Zoroastrianism. So what will happen? Amenti, the crocodile, lion, rhino, goddess, she will eat the soul, and the soul will be then in torment, and will live in torment eternally ever after. However, she resides, Amenti or Ammon, at the lake of fire. This sounds like traditional and other spiritual or religious traditions. And if she throws the soul into the lake of fire, it may cease to be altogether. So there's two possibilities on the dark side of when you don't have a good heart, a heart of truth, a heart of purity. However, if the soul is lighter than the one feather of truth, then that soul will be taken by Osiris into the heavenly realms, past the frequency fences of the third, fourth dimensions of the astral plane, the lower astral plane, past that last frequency fence, into the great light, and there stay for immortality and eternity in the great light of source, from whence the soul was originally created, and from whence it came when it descended in the fall, as we say in some of our stories in the Jewish, and the Christian, and the Muslim traditions, and peace be upon Muhammad and bless his holy name. And these cosmological, mythological stories of cross-cultural origins pertain to all the same kinds of stories with their own personal cultural inflections through time. So Osiris, now we're moving forward with this in time. Osiris later in the Greek and the Roman traditions became Hermes, and Hermes was the figure who was the spirit figure, the mercurial figure, if you like, who could take souls back and forth over the boundary line between the material physical body, earth, and the higher realms of the spirit world. And in Carl Jung's psychology, if you're interested, or if you're a Jungian analyst or a Jungian analyst in training, as I have been for 40 years in my work as a dream analyst in Jungian psychotherapy, then you'll want to look at the fact that Carl Jung deems that Hermes and the archetype of Hermes, the mercurial trickster figure, yes, but the spiritual Christ-like figure of Hermes, is the one archetype to engage on when you're doing your inner process of heart purification. So those of you in dream analysis and psychotherapy and so on, transpersonal psychotherapy, I would suggest highly that you tune into the Hermes archetype and look astrologically for where your moon and your Venus and your Mercury are, what house and what chart and what sign in your birth chart, and where they are now in your transits. So later on, through the Dark Ages, meaning the fall of Rome in around 500 AD, and then the tribes of marauding Europe and the Vikings, so on, taking over all of the known world at the time, except for the First Nations, indigenous peoples on other continents. That fall of Rome and the Dark Ages lasted until the 1600s AD. And the one figure that we know that brought back the Enlightenment, and here we're talking about artistic enlightenment, spiritual enlightenment, architectural enlightenment, with the Italian Renaissance in particular, was Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus was the Christ-like figure, the archetype, and some say the Christ himself, the Sananda Oversoul, who was able to bring back to our culture, at least in Europe and Southern Europe, and then spread to Northern Europe and the United Kingdom, and then eventually to the world, the enlightenment, the light of the higher supernatural afterlife Christ consciousness, if you like. And Hermes Trismegistus was a very important figure. He's also known as Thoth, which just so happens to be another name for Osiris in the ancient Egyptian tradition. All of this you can find online. It's very exciting and interesting. What we're looking at here is, in fact, some kind of evolution of humanity and humanity's consciousness cross-culturally, with the need to understand that we are immortal, eternal beings, and there is an afterlife reckoning. Unfortunately, we're still in an early phase of science here, which is why I'm putting up so many videos on spiritual science, ancient and modern and futuristic. That the logical positivists who are materialists only and only use the left brain of their two-sided brain will say that there is no soul, there is no afterlife, the soul doesn't go anywhere, nothing happens to it. If they'd only studied cultural anthropology and history and ancient cosmologies, they would realize and be excited by the fact that there is a reality to all this. It's not just a cultural reality, it's an authentic ontological reality of absolute truth. That I can attest to from my own experience back and forth between the spirit world and this world and all my near-death experiences. And of course there's lots of literature. This is the point then. How valuable would it be for you, knowing that there is an afterlife, to prepare yourself now and be proactive, knowing that you'll be judged on the purity and quantum of your soul, your heart, your consciousness, and how you've acted towards others? Knowing all this, how valuable would it be for you to engage upon a process through yoga, meditation, and transpersonal spiritual psychotherapy and training to make sure that when you leave, you will be able to go to the place of light, that your pure, true heart will be actually lighter than the one feather of truth that Ma'at or the Christ or Hermes carry, or Thoth. I would suggest it's very valuable. You know, the ancient Egyptian text of Ani actually has 42 negative confessions. Unlike the Catholic Church where you have to confess what you have sinned, the purpose of the negative confessions was to say the things you have not done. I have not killed somebody, I have not thought revengefully against somebody, and so on. There's 42 of them. And these are principles that you find in the sacred Buddhist tradition, the mystical Christian tradition, the Kabbalah, and many other traditions, obviously Hindu as well, particularly Vedanta, if you've seen my videos on Vedanta and Vivekananda. To the point then, feather of truth, heart of truth. You know that there is a cosmic law, that the goodness of the universe, the love and the light of the universe, judges in a sort of just an open way all souls when they pass over. And that's not just the humans in this planet. But we are human and we're here now. So I'm hoping that you're inspired to take seriously the process and the steps necessary to purify your soul and rejoin it with the truth and the goodness that every soul uniquely is from the beginning, from creation. To find that purity, that truth in your heart, so that at the moment of your physical passing and transitioning into the spirit world, you will be able to go into the highest light and attain your immortality. And then, through the freedom of your own willpower and choice, because that's the great thing that the Goddess Creator has given us, is free will and choice, you may choose to come back and be a bodhisattva and a Buddha, or you may choose to stay in the spirit world and deal with the souls in the dark lower astral planes and help and support them to move up into the light. In any case, it is your choice, and I hope you've been finding that this afterlife preparation of knowing about the feather of truth and the heart of truth is who you really are. It would be good to get on side with yourself, go home to your heart again, live the truth that you are, be a principled human being, in this time of great darkness and violence and selfishness and envy and greed and hatred and murder. What will stand aside and stand apart are those unique individuals such as Mahatma Gandhi, Jesus, Krishna, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, all these great people, Mother Teresa, and so on, who have changed the world for the better. And you, listening, by virtue of the fact that you're interested, are one of those great beings, a great being of love. And so I would suggest to you, in a humble way for yourself, take the journey, take the adventure, purify yourself, purify everything in you with the spiritual fire that's available to you. May your journey and your adventure be a great one. Take confidence, take heart, take peace, take courage, be strong, and take action daily. Om Namah Shivaya, Namaste, Dr. Joseph Martin.